Hospitals Network. Are we okay, Samir?
Yeah,
We're on?
yeah, bro.
Okay. I don't know, I feel like that's not on.
It's on, it's on. Wallah, it's on.
Oh, you're taking your
I thought you were going to stand there if you want to
okay,
stand
doesn't
there.
matter. I can move. So I'll be doing a presentation, inshallah, on the 13th, as I said, for the Hamilton Hospitals Network about the Muslim patients' needs and spiritual, and religious needs. But for today's, presentation, we will be talking about an important issue for you in your life. That is the personal identity, or how to build and firm your Muslim identity. And the reason why this is important, because your identity is basically who you are, and it is something unique to yourself, and you need to worry about and work on in your life to ensure that early in your life you have the you are able to be on track and shape your personality per se in the right way. There's an image that I have in another presentation where when you have a clay, those who do artwork with the clays, they make the shape, and after the shape is done and it's dry, it becomes fixed. It's known that it would be difficult afterwards to change. So the same is to be said almost to a certain extent in the human personality. So it is basically your identity, your values, your friendship, your political orientations, your interests, your dreams, principles, beliefs, emotions. It's everything. It's as a package, of who you are as a human being. And it is there are so many elements involved into the formation of the identity. Your friends, for instance, the activity they're involved in, the club you belong to. As a Muslim, person, the other firms and factors which we'll come to talk about also play a major role in shaping your identity. So let's talk more, scientifically or more formally about what identity is. Identity, or the personal identity, is the concept you, and I do stress on the concept you, develop about yourself that evolves over the course of your life. And for fairness, identity is shaped primarily in your childhood and your adolescence, and it's primarily the stage you're in right now. This is one of the most critical stages in your life, as we will inshallah come to talk about. The Prophet ﷺ indicated that لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. You will not be left alone in the hereafter until you're asked about four things. Among them is عن شبابه فيما أبلاه. He stressed on the importance of looking after your youthhood, because this is one of the most critical, stages in your life, because of so many things, so many factors. One of them is your physical, structure. As you emerge into your adolescence, there are so many physical changes emerging in your body, and you probably figured that out. You're no longer a child. Your voice have changed. The face, the hair growth in different parts of your body is taking place. Your cognitive ability is also changing. Your in adolescence times, which is the time you're in right now, your cognitive ability boosts and become much more powerful than what it is in your childhood. Think of two computing machines. The basic computing machines we used to have in the past, the Pentiums and the I-series right now that are emerging, in the new technology. So your ability of thinking and abstracting and analyzing is improved a lot through the teens year or through the adolescence. So this is a very important factor that you need to be aware and mindful about. So this may include also aspects of your life that you have no control over, such as where you grow, or the skin of your color. These are factors that you have no control on. Basically, you're born up in a certain way, you're born in a certain way, and you're growing up in an environment you at the early in your life have no control on. There are choices that you would have a choice on, such as how do you spend your time? You know, you're now doing your degree. You could be probably somewhere else, flipping burgers in McDonald's, or hanging around in the streets and trafficking drugs, or doing something else in life that could be more interesting or more profiting for your in your perception. So this is a choice that you have in your life. You demonstrate proportion of your personal identity outwardly through what do you wear, and who you interact with in your life. And this would be an example of the tip of the iceberg. What your personality really is very complicated and multidimensional, and what you present in front of you is always a smaller proportion of who you are. The biggest proportion, which is the similar to the iceberg example that normally is used when we're talking, is hidden, and some of us choose to keep that hidden, or others not to. And this is why in Islam Islam emphasizes much on who we are in core or origin. Allah does not look at our images, physical images, but rather look at who we are and what our hearts have and is forming. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Your identity is very complicated, very deep, that many that you might not be able to understand someone's identity easily. And that's why in Islam there's a beautiful story in which Umar al-Khattab was once approached by a person who he asked him he was in need for something. He said to bring someone who knows you. So he went for a short time and come back with a person, and he said to him, this person know me. So he asked that person, he said, how do you know him? He said, oh, I met him in the mosque. He said, you probably have seen him in the mosque standing up and down, and and he thought he's a pious person, a person who's righteous. He said to him, yes. He said, no, that's not how people are known. You know the person if you have traveled with them, if you were their neighbor, and if you have dealt with them with dirham or dinar, you have done business with them, because these three things would expose the core and the merits of the person in their life. So there are actually in psychology also different, some theories indicate that there are different levels of personality, and between two brackets. That's why when young people come to me for counseling, when they are planning to take the big step in their life, and I say in Islam, when we look into for marriage, we don't necessarily look at the first level of personality, but rather we go to the bottom, which is what a person has in mind and how much of it is applied in their life. You could meet someone that and click, love from the first sight. You hear this a lot, right? Love from the first sight is common in Western societies. It's very common in our cultures, right? Love from the first sight. This is absolutely nonsense, because what happens actually is not love from the first sight, is you connect the image of that person in the back of your mind for an experience you had in the past. Whether it is a star movie you have watched for for a long time, and they remind you of certain actions and certain things you have loved in that movie, or whether it is an experience of a person you have dealt with early in your life. It could be, by the way, a positive experience or a negative experience, and that's why you can hate someone from the first time you see them, but afterwards, when you deal with them, you find out, no, wait a minute, they're different than what they look or might appear to look like. So this is an important thing. What we need to look at, what we need to keep in mind as we're trying to understand how to form our Muslim identity, is that we need not to necessarily show an image of who we are, but build a concrete, solid foundation of we want to be as Muslims, people who have a mission in life. And this is an important thing that we need to keep in mind. You're not happen to be born and live in Canada for no purpose or no reason. You have a mission, you have a role to play in life. as we all know that Allah said in the Quran, وَخَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. I've created man and jinn for the purpose of worshiping to Allah Azza wa Jal. And the concept of worshiping is not only inclusive to standing in the mosque or praying 5 times a day or devoting yourself to do rituals in life, but ibadah or worshiping is inclusive to your all life activities. So if you look into what could possibly be major influential factors in your life, there are, as said in the beginning, things that you have no control on, like your genetical makeup, and that's why early in life, we're encouraged to look for the right person when we start the family. So because look into the right person to create the family with, because eventually you have children. Your children will be the composition or the product of the two sides. And also there's the family parenting styles, which is something I said again, you will not have much of a control on in your life. And this is what we probably be explored in a different setting with families who have children. But there are elements that you would have a very big role in contributing in community, the mosque. You are part of a community that belongs to a larger body, which is the ummah. It depends on how active you're engaged in your community, or how active the community you belong to is, so that you will be having a better influence in your personality development in life. Mosque is also another place where you would have a major impact, impact on your life in forming and shaping your personality. There's the culture where we come from, and there's the culture of the values of Islam. Many of us come from different cultural backgrounds, and our cultural backgrounds is shaping our personality. The way we dress, the way we interact, the way we deal with things. Those are all factors that influence and shape our personality. The Islamic values, halal and haram, and the Islamic morals are all also contributing into shaping our personality. There is also bigger, broader factors that influence our personality, which is living in the West. I don't think you're living in a vacuum. You're taking from the culture that surrounds you, and you also contribute to the culture around you. School is a major factor of that influences your personality, whether you're aware of it or not aware of it. Because on average, how many hours a student spend in school? Let's say from elementary high school, 8 hours a day almost. Contrast that with how many hours they spend with their parents. Very small proportion. The time you spend with your friends compared to the time you stay with your family, it's very small. The time you spend nowadays, being engaged in social media, because the media definition has changed totally nowadays with the introduction of the social media and the introductions of these gadgets you have in your hand, which is playing a big role into shaping your personality. Those are all potential factors, or big factors that plays a big role into shaping your personality. So I want you to focus on 3 factors: the cultural values, the Islamic values, and the Western values, which are things we have introduced earlier. Why I'm focusing primarily on these 3 factors? Because these are huge and powerful factors that could play a big role into shaping who you are. And in my talks, I always stress and talk about how many of young brothers and sisters growing up in Canada are caught between three different forces. The cultural values, the Islamic values, and the Western values. Because again, you're not living in vacuum. You're part of this society in which you're living in. So you cannot live in away from everyone. You have to give and take, and you have to interact. And these 3 forces could sometimes, be causing stress to you. They could be. There's another image, I think, that's not in this, slide, in the other slides, in which it could show you how these 3 forces could really have a very stressful, impact on your life. You're torn apart between, trying to please your family and follow the culture they come from. But also at the same time, your conscience is calling you to become a good Muslim, but at the same time, you're trying to belong with the rest of the people in the mainstream. So how are you able to create balance with all these factors in your life is a big question mark. Think of factors like this: Islamophobia. Islamophobia is a rising issue in our life, and this is contributing into shaping your personality, and also it is helping you to shape your personality in a way by interacting with this very very critical and dangerous issue in your life. This might not be the same for other kids who are coming from other cultural backgrounds or other faith background, but you as a Muslim now on the hot spot, and this is playing a major role into shaping your personality or identity. Other things that could be important, right now going in your mind as we're in the stage of forming who you are, your identity. Should I be wearing a thawb, or should I be wearing, what do you call shawal, qamis? Okay, or what? As a sister, should I be, wearing, a certain outfit? I'm not too familiar with the sisters, clothing styles and traditions, but these are all things that are now in the back of your mind as you're trying to understand who you are and what you should be, presenting yourself to the mainstream or to everyone around you. Other things could be, for the brothers, how long should my beard be, or should I be shaving? And for the sister, would I, be wearing a hijab, or wearing the face cover, the niqab? These are all things that are right now playing in the back of your mind as you're trying to form and understand who you are and trying to represent yourself. Other things could be, well, we have new terms coming up nowadays. Modern Muslim. Should I be, a cool, modern Muslim who fits into the mainstream and pretty much loose and or should I have a different way of presenting myself to the mainstream? By the way, I'm not being judgmental on either of the options that I have presented. All these are personal things that you will be choosing yourself, the ones you feel comfortable with. After all, you will see that it does not matter what you present from outside. What matters is what values you carry in your mind and what actions you do in your life. This is the third level of personality, as we said earlier on, which matters the most in your life. This is what makes who you are. This is what you will be, evaluated with in the dunya and in the akhirah. Because eventually, this is a journey you go through in your life, and then eventually, the result of your journey will be by the time you feel like it is about time for you to leave. When I was in your age and I was going through the different challenges you're going through in your life, these things were not present in our mind, in my mind, and the mind of those who were around me. We were just focused into getting our, immediate gratifications. We want to get over with our studies. We want to get a job. We want to get this. We want to get that. We want to be famous. We want this. We want this. But at certain stage in your life, as we go through different stages in our life, we feel, now we see things a different way. There's something called akhirah. There's something called, what is my contribution to, the team I belong to, or to the community I belong to the society I belong to. So these are all important things to keep in mind. So as I said, these three forces, if they're not aligned and if you're not able to create the balance in your life, this could be manifested in an ugly way in your life. I've met young people who are going through severe phases of depression. There are those who have turned to drugs as a result of trying to run away from reality and unable to create the balance in their life. There are those who have been kicked out, or they run away from home as a result of the too much stress they're living in. Their parents pushing them to live in a certain way, but they're unable to do it. There's something that is an unrest and unease in the back of their mind that is causing so much stress to them. This stress, as again, can be manifested in different, mental health quote unquote issues that we deal with in our life. And mental health, by the way, is misquoted and misunderstood in our community. But there's nothing wrong with exploring mental health and making sure that you are in a good mental health status. By the way, I'm a certified mental health first aid counselor as well. So let's think outside the box. Let's see how we can see ourselves in a different perspective. How we can, be more aware of who we are and what influences our personality, so we're able to play a role to a certain extent of how we can shape our personality down the road. Have you seen this? The center of mass? How many of you taking physics? No? Yeah? Are you taking physics? Center of mass, right?
No. But I remember doing something like that.
Yeah, so the center of mass is the center where
Gravity or something.
the gravity of the mass is at the center. So regardless of the shape, if you hold the object from the center of the mass, you will be at the center of the gravity. So this is just a fun game, you know, you play with. I remember I finished a degree in engineering, by the way, from the US, and one of the instructors I loved the most was an instructor who used to come always to the class with something funny. You know, once he came to class wearing his rollerblades and pushing, you know, heavy objects away to show us how we can move out. We can move ourselves by what we call the first level of the first law of
every action has a reaction.
Exactly. Yes.
The exerting force.
Exactly. So that's the one. It's been too many years since I left engineering, so it's a history now for me. But you know, think outside the box. I was trying to explain for us as engineers, you need to think creatively, you need to think outside the box, and this is what you need to think about. Let me see things from a different perspective in my life. You know, three forces could be creating a base. The wider the base and the legs, the stronger they will be, the stronger the structure could be, right? And the narrow the base is, and the weaker the structures or the legs are, the weaker the structure is. So this is designed to be for, you know, hanging coats or, you know, hats, not for heavy objects. If you put heavy object, it's going to tip over or it's going to break. So this is what you need to keep in mind. These three forces we're talking about are so powerful, but you need to align them in the right way so that you're able to live in harmony with yourself and excel in the way you're making your life to achieve your goals and objects. In other words, you're trying to create synergy or momentum in your life that would help you to move fast rather than being crippled and, you know, stumbling every time. How, you know, you probably, you know, have heard of a friend of yours who was doing a degree and then all of a sudden they figured, you know, that's not what I need. Let me just go back and, you know, do something different. Or, you know, or heard of someone where, you know, they're just having difficulty to adjust and accept things in their life. So if we're able to align with these three forces, then we're able to, inshallah, create synergy in our life. I think we need to stop here for Salat al-Maghrib, and we will inshallah resume after Salat al-Maghrib to continue with, you know, the concepts inshallah we're talking about. So Jazakumullah khairan. You can pause the recording, Sheikh. Just pause it.
Yeah.
Stop it. You can stop it. Stop it.
Should we put the mats here?
Whatever you guys are, you know.